Okay, so let's just jump right in. I want you to imagine something. Picture an entire civilization's operating system. The very core of its culture, its connection to the divine, suddenly gets unplugged. And I don't mean just a server going down for a few hours. I mean a total, catastrophic, system-wide failure.
So, what do you do? What happens when the absolute center of your universe just vanishes? Do you try to rebuild it exactly the way it was? Or do you have to innovate just to survive? This isn't some hypothetical thought experiment. This is the real story of one of the greatest reboots in all of human history.
All right, to really get the reboot, we've got to understand the crash. So we're going to head back in time about 2,500 years to a moment that literally changed everything for the Jewish people.
You have to realize just how important the temple was. It wasn't just some big, beautiful building. It was the spiritual heart of the entire nation. Think of it like the main server, the one direct link where the divine presence, what we call the Shekinah, was felt the most intensely. It was the only place you could do core rituals like sacrifices. I mean, everything revolved around it. And then it was gone. In 421 BCE, the Babylonians destroyed it. The people were forced into exile in Babylonia. And for 70 years, which was an entire lifetime back then, they lived without their land, without their temple. A whole generation grew up knowing only stories. So when a small group finally got the chance to return and rebuild, they were basically stepping into a world their parents had only ever dreamed about.
So you'd think returning home, rebuilding the temple, that's the happy ending, right? Party's on. But the reality? Well, it was way more complicated than that.
And this pretty much captures the whole mood. When the second temple was finally finished, the younger generation, they celebrated like crazy. But the older folks, the ones who could actually remember the first one, they wept. So why? Why were they crying? Because they knew something absolutely essential was missing. The hardware was back online, sure, but the core software was gone. You see, the first temple had the Ark of the Covenant. This was the most sacred object in Judaism, a direct link to God. That era was defined by open prophecy and real, tangible miracles. But in this new second temple, the Ark was gone, just lost to history. The age of prophecy was ending, that divine presence felt a lot less direct, and the open miracles were a thing of the past. It was a copy, but it felt like some of the most critical files were corrupted. Just rebuilding the building wasn't gonna cut it. The whole spiritual connection felt fundamentally different now. They had a temple, yeah, but they didn't have that same intimate access to the divine that they once had. This wasn't a problem a construction crew could fix. This was a crisis that needed a spiritual solution. So, facing this totally new, uncertain world, a group of true visionaries stepped up. They knew that Judaism needed a lot more than a new building. It needed a whole new blueprint for survival. 120. Remember that number. That's how many leaders came together to form this spiritual and legal supercouncil, ready to guide the nation through the crisis. They were called the Anshei Knesset HaGedolah, the Men of the Great Assembly. This group was founded by the legendary Ezra the Scribe. And believe me, this was not just another committee. This was the largest, most influential court ever founded in Israel, a true dream team of the greatest minds of that entire era. And just look at this roster. It's like the Avengers of ancient Judaism, seriously. You've got Ezra, the founder. You have the very last prophets, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. You've got Mordecai, the hero from the Purim story. Nehemiah, the governor who physically rebuilt Jerusalem's walls. And its last member, Shimon HaTzadik. These weren't just dusty scholars. These were leaders who had lived through the trauma and were dead set on forging a new future. And this, right here, is where the story gets truly revolutionary. The Great Assembly started a project to upgrade Judaism from a religion that was stuck in one place to a faith that could actually thrive anywhere. Their core insight was just genius. They had a gut feeling that even this second temple might not last forever. They understood that to survive future exiles, to survive the long test of time, Judaism had to become portable. It couldn't depend on a physical spot on a map or on a special class of priests. It needed to live in the hearts and minds of the people, no matter where on earth they were. So they launched this 4-step upgrade. First, they finalized the library. They took all the sacred texts and officially canonized the 24 books of the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, giving the Jewish people one unified story. Step 2, they replaced sacrifices with words. Since prophecy was gone, they created a new way to talk to God, standardized prayer. They wrote the blueprint for prayers like the Amidah, turning words into the new sacrifices. Third, they open-sourced the Torah. They basically broke the priest monopoly on knowledge and made Jewish education something for the entire nation. And finally, number 4, they built guardrails. They created new rabbinic laws, like fences around the core commandments, to protect them during a long, uncertain future in the diaspora.
They did so much more than just pile stones on top of each other. The sages say they restored the crown of the Torah, putting it back on the head of the entire nation, giving every single person a real stake in its future.
So, let's bring all this home. This all went down thousands of years ago. Why should you care about some ancient committee?
Well, because the Judaism that you and I know today is the direct result of their vision. They didn't just save it from collapsing. They literally programmed the version of Judaism that we are all running right now. I mean, think about it. That Bible on your bookshelf or on your phone, they're the ones who decided which books made the cut. The prayer book, the Siddur, used in synagogues all over the world, they established its core structure. And the very idea of a synagogue being like a miniature temple, a place for community, for prayer, for study, that whole concept is a direct product of their incredible portable design. What they did was so much more than a religious reform. What they really did was engineer one of the most successful cultural survival plans in the history of the world, making sure a people's entire identity could last for thousands of years, even without a land or a central temple. So, in the end, they faced this devastating system crash, and they didn't just respond by rebuilding. They responded by radically redesigning the entire system to be resilient. And that leaves all of us with a pretty powerful question. When we face our own challenges, what kinds of enduring structures will our generation build for the future?